Hello everybody, before I want to start the video, I would like to say thank you all for watching my content and subscribing to my channel. The last time I did this, we were about, I believe, 200 subscribers, and now we are almost going to 500. This is insane, and because of this, I appreciate it so much, man. It's so cool. And my other video, just above 5,000. I've never had so much people watching my content before in my entire life, as I had other channels before this. So I really appreciate it, and I hope you enjoyed the video. And yeah, like and subscribe, and yeah, do the thing. Alright. Back in 1999, when I got this book, Ocarina of Time was out for about a few months. And back then, when the internet wasn't that great as it is today, all we had were guides and magazines. Someone couldn't find the forest temple here. I may have checked these pages many times, and to me, it's still fun to look at. At this time of my life, I had a friend that was also crazy about the Legend of Zelda. And one day, he asked me to come over his home to help him with the temple that he couldn't get through. He told me that it was the water temple, and he didn't like it. As I already beaten the temple, I knew what to do, so I went to his house and showed him how to beat it. The water temple is my favorite temple or dungeon in the Zelda series. The temple used to be extremely complicated for a lot of players, and because of this, it received a lot of hate throughout the years. But for me, something being complicated is usually more fun. To get into the water temple at first, you'll need something called the iron boots. But in order to get these boots, you'll have to deal with the specific dungeon area first, which is totally not around Lake Hylia. Instead, it's located behind the Zora's Domain, an area that has been totally frozen over. The iron boots are located within the ice caverns, and this is more of a small dungeon than an actual temple. The caverns are filled with ice-related enemies, and the music gives me the chills. Beating the dungeon isn't all that hard, but I never really liked the mechanics of the dungeon. At the end of this dungeon, you'll encounter the boss that was very underwhelming, a white Wolfos. Now, I always believed that the white Wolfos was the one that created the claw mark located at the tree of Lake Hylia, as that made the most sense to me. As the ice cavern and the water temple are an actual combined temple, the most closest enemy that would be able to create a claw mark was the white Wolfos. And there wasn't any enough time to change the content within the game. The developers simply left it there. In Ocarina of Time 3D, the claw mark has been removed from the tree, an indication that the claw mark wasn't supposed to be there. After beating the ice caverns, you've met Sheik that gave you the song called Serenade of Water. Sheik tells you that the reason why the Zora's Domain is all frozen over was because of a curse that was led by the creature living in the water temple, and it's up to you to save the domain. When we enter the water temple by using the hookshot to open the door, and the blue tunic to breathe, and the iron boots to walk on the bottom of the lake, we manage to enter the water temple. Now listen to this amazing music, because I cannot get enough of this one. The architecture of the temple looks to be a mix between a cave and a large shrine. Tektites roam around these halls, and rooms upon rooms are built to protect the temple of invaders. But there's a lot more going on in these halls, as we can see symbolism all around the temple that looks strikingly familiar to a symbol that I have discussed before, swirls and dragons. Throughout the Zelda series, we managed to find these swirls everywhere, but it's especially Breath of the Wild that's filled with water dragon statues created by the mysterious Zonai tribe. In Ocarina of Time 3D, the dragon statues are incredibly detailed, and that has for sure been done on purpose by Nintendo. Remember that Lake Hylia before Skyward Sword was nothing more than an indication to the people living in Hyrule, as the people are referred to as Hylians, and the lake is located in Hyrule, so Lake Hylia. Skyward Sword changed this by creating a divine power out of Hylia, the one goddess that wanted to save everybody from the darkness. And as time passed on, legends told us of a goddess that sacrificed herself to protect the lands of Hyrule, and this is why she's being worshipped by the Hylians throughout the ages. Some players suspected long before Skyward Sword was made that the goddess Hylia was in fact the goddess of time, or even a secret goddess that acted like a fourth piece of the four force, instead of a triforce. I however never believed it, as I always thought that it was just referring to Hylians. When going further into the temple, we encounter a room that is filled with water and surrounded by some type of weird fog and a small island with a tree in the middle. Once passing by the tree, you'll notice that there is nowhere else to go, and once you look at the back of the tree, something is standing there with red eyes looking at you. Then to me, the best and amazing mini-boss, the best boss from all the Zelda games, appears to fight you. This boss is called Dark Link. Now, I do not want to go over this boss within this video, as I want to make a different video about it, so I'll skip this one for now. And as soon Dark Link is defeated, the door opens for you to find the long shot, the upgraded version of the hook shot. Yeah, this boss fight for sure hooked me in, as it was my favorite. As we explore further into the temple and slowly get to the end of it, one wonders how this temple was made and by who. The Zoras have to be the ones that decided to create this temple as an honoring to their own culture. However, dragons are nowhere near to be found in Ocarina of Time other than the fire dragon, which is the total opposite of the element of water. As Ocarina of Time is much older than Breath of the Wild, the concept of the temple is also much older. Instead of it being an inspiration for Zoanai historic lore that will continue to grow over time through the newer games, it was an actual depiction of Shinto religion. In Japan, water dragons tend to have a lot of variety, but also they protect shrines that are built close to water. The one closest to this is the Tatsu, or Ryu. Now with this in mind, the temple's design makes more sense, as there is another legendary dragon called Watatsumi, and can also be 3 gods called Sanjin, and the temple itself has 3 floors to mess around with. All this together shows how in depth, and yes I said that, this temple actually is. And then we reach the end of the temple, to find the mediocre but cool boss Morpha, a creature that took all the water out of the lake to claim it as its own. Spikes are surrounded through the room that has no function through the fight whatsoever, with platforms for Link to jump onto. My feeling for this fight was always that the walls were probably going to close in, with the spikes coming at the player, and the only way to avoid the spikes was to jump into the water, which would give Morpha the advantage of attacking you faster. And then for a while, the walls would return to its normal state, so that Link could return to the higher ground and try to shoot the monster out of the water with the long shot. Notice how in the original game, there is no dragon on the walls, but in the 3D version, we see another dragon beautifully depicted on the wall. After beating the boss, the lake starts to fill itself up again, and so, Link receives the snowflake water medallion. As we go back to Zora's Domain, something that the game kept telling us did not happen. Zora's Domain was supposed to be in an unfrozen state now, as the water temple boss Morpha was the one who had to defeat in order to let everything return to normal, and Sheik told us that this was the curse that was placed on the domain. But instead, everything is still the same. The reasoning behind this is that Nintendo simply did not add this change in, and so the domain stays frozen. Nintendo eventually used this as a plot device in Twilight Princess by keeping the Zora's Domain frozen, but as this is hundreds of years later, this was not done as a remnant of the Water Temple, but instead was done by the darkness of Twilight to destroy the waters of Hyrule. In the end, this temple will always be my favorite temple. The music has never been beaten by anything else, and the mini-boss was amazing. The layout of the temple was confusing, but never really a problem for me. And as water is my favorite element, this video will, just like the Water Temple, flow like a river. I hope.